Read a Rant.
Welcome to the Read a Rant podcast segment of the Rant Press. Tonight's headline is TikTok is under congressional scrutiny, all right? And I got to say, on the Rant Press, we discuss current events here at the Read a Rant podcast, where we read past the headline, look at what the reporting actually says, and then do what we came here to do. We rant about it. And tonight we're going to talk about TikTok, all right? Because I've already had my own issues with TikTok lately, because apparently an honest book review can somehow become a community guidelines problem, you know? But let's forget my book reviews for a minute, because what's being reported out about TikTok right now is considerably more serious. Two United States senators, and they are on opposite sides of the aisle. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut are demanding answers from TikTok over reports of concerning an experiment involving the platform's recommendation algorithm. And when you've got a Republican and a Democrat signing the same letter demanding answers from a social media giant, I think it's worth reading what they're actually upset about. So that's exactly what we are going to do. And I think we need to talk about what TikTok is accused of doing. We'll talk about that first. According to the senator's 20th letter of August, it states TikTok developed changes to its recommendation system intended to reduce users' repeated exposure to potentially harmful content. We're talking about subjects including sadness, loneliness, extreme dieting, and other sensitive material. That sounds like a reasonable safety feature. But here's where the story gets truly disturbing. According to reporting cited by the senators, TikTok allegedly withheld those protections from approximately 10% of its American users as part of a control group. At the time, that represented approximately 15 million people. Why? The senators say the experiment was designed in part to determine how the safety measure affected user engagement. In other words, lawmakers now want TikTok to explain whether user safety was being weighed against keeping people engaged with the platform. And I have a very simple Rant Press question. Why are we experimenting with safety features like that? Especially when minors could potentially become part of that experiment. And this is where the story gets much, much more serious. One of the cases highlighted by the senators involves 16-year-old Chase Naska. According to the senator's letters, an internal TikTok report indicated that Chase had been placed in what was described as a backtest experiment back in January of 2022. The senators say this meant certain filter bubble prevention strategies were intentionally not activated for his account as part of said test. The internal review, as described by lawmakers and news reporters, examined, this is a big number, 7,563 videos Chase watched during the final 2 weeks of his life. According to the senators, approximately 73% contained themes involving sadness or personal struggles. This is my problem with AI moderation bots. And they said that nearly 10%, violated TikTok's own policies. Chase sadly died by suicide in February of 2022. And I want to be extremely careful here, because correlation and causation are not the same thing. We're not going to sit behind this microphone and claim that a social media algorithm definitely caused someone's death when there is a much more complicated question. But we can absolutely ask this question. If a company develops a safeguard because repeated exposures to certain content might be harmful, why would that safeguard intentionally be switched off for some users during an experiment? And why was this experiment even being conducted in the first place? And why were minors apparently included in said experiment? Those are not questions coming from some random on the person on the internet. Those are questions that members of the United States Senate are now asking TikTok. And Blackburn and Blumenthal aren't simply complaining about TikTok. They sent the company a detailed list of questions. They want to know whether TikTok conducted a risk assessment before the experiment. They want to know what executives knew. They want to know why minors were even included. They want information about how many Americans have been placed into experiments where safety features were withheld, delayed, disabled, or reduced. And they want TikTok to identify other algorithm experiments in the United States involving safety features. The senators have requested answers by September 1st of 2026, this year, in a couple of days. And that last question might be the biggest one of them all. Because this story shouldn't only be about one experiment. The bigger question is, how often does this happen? And how many experiments are social media companies running on recommendation algorithms? What exactly are they testing? Who gets placed in these control groups? And do those people know they're part of an experiment? And what happens when the thing being tested isn't the color of a button or where an advertisement appears, but a safety feature? And here comes the rant. This is where TikTok's moderation priorities start looking absolutely bizarre to me. Because I'm a book reviewer. I talk about books. I critique books. And I've had reviews flagged for alleged community guidelines violation. I know myself and other authors and other content creators get spam bots, spam messages, fake stuff, and these damn Telegram bots all the time. And now Congress is asking TikTok whether the company intentionally withheld an algorithmic safety feature from millions of people. Think about that contrast. Social media companies constantly tell creators, community guidelines, safety, trust, integrity. Okay. Then those standards need to apply to the company operating the platform too, and the platform has got to stop promoting content like that we have been experiencing here on Book Talk specifically with porn bots and everything. You cannot demand that creators obsess over platform safety while treating questions about your own algorithm as something the public isn't entitled to understand. If you're going to police creators in the name of keeping a community safe, then users have every right to ask, who is policing this algorithm? Because the algorithm isn't some magical creature living inside your phone. People design it, people modify it, people decide what metrics matter. And people decide what experiments get conducted. And they decide what trade-offs they're willing to make. And they teach the AI bots on what to look for. And I'm wondering if the people decide what the AI bots go after. And this right here is why congressional scrutiny really matters. And this isn't happening in isolation either. The Senate Commerce Committee advanced the Kids Online Safety Act, commonly known as KOSA, earlier this month. Blackburn and Blumenthal have specifically pointed to this controversy while arguing for stronger protections for minors online. And TikTok is facing scrutiny elsewhere over children's privacy as well. On August 21st, TikTok reached a $400 million settlement with the United States Department of Justice, resolving a 2024 lawsuit alleging violations of federal children's privacy law. Those are separate issues. We should not pretend they're the same case, but together they illustrate why Washington's scrutiny of social media platforms, in particular their treatment of younger users, it's not disappearing anytime soon. Which I agree with. I think that minors' safety online is paramount. There should be no reason for that TikTok does this. We need to protect our kids as much as possible because of companies and predatory practices like TikTok is doing. And TikTok has said that it remains deeply committed to user safety, particularly the safety and well-being of teenagers. The company has pointed to investments in trust and safety detection system and enforcement teams designed to identify and remove material violating its community guidelines, which I think is a bunch of bullshit, Because if that was true, the senators wouldn't be bringing them up to Capitol Hill to testify in front of Congress under oath for what they just did. I know TikTok deserves the opportunity to answer the senator's question. That's important. And the rant press isn't going to convict a company based solely on a congressional letter. There is a difference between what has been reported, what lawmakers allege those reports demonstrate, and what has ultimately been proven. And they have until next week to provide the answers Blackburn and Blumenthal requested. I want to see those answers. Because that's when we can start comparing what Congress alleges happened with what TikTok actually says happened. But I think the story goes beyond TikTok. We honestly have handed recommendation algorithms enormous influence over what people consume. TikTok decides what appears on your For You page. YouTube recommends your next video. Instagram, really determines what appears in your feed. And increasingly, algorithms decide which voices get amplified and which disappear into the digital basement. Most users have absolutely no idea how those decisions are being made. So when we learn that companies may be conducting experiments involving the systems determining what millions of people see, the public deserves and has the right to transparency. Especially when that, social media platform is conducting experiments when safety features are involved and when children are involved. And especially when engagement metrics are involved. Because a fundamental conflict is worth discussing. What happens when keeping people safe could also mean keeping them less engaged? That's the question underneath this entire controversy. And Congress really wants TikTok to answer it. However, my Rand Press verdict isn't that TikTok is guilty of every accusation being thrown at it right now. I don't have all the answers yet. My verdict is much simpler. Congress is extremely right to ask the questions. If TikTok intentionally withheld a safety mechanism for millions of Americans as part of an experiment, the public deserves to know why. We deserve to know who approved it. We deserve to know whether executives understood the risk. And I would even take it a step further. If those executives knew the risks, especially when minors were included, if they were, those executives should be held criminally responsible to the fullest extent of the law. And we deserve to know whether similar experiments have happened before or are happening now. TikTok wants creators to follow the community guidelines, fine. Creators should follow them. But accountability is not a one-way street. If you're going to moderate the community gets to question you too. And come September 1st, I'll be very interested in reading TikTok's answers. Because here at the Rant Press, we don't stop at the headline. We read the story, we question the headline, and when something doesn't add up, we embrace the rant. All right? This has been the Rant Press, brought to you by the Read and Rant podcast. The headlines are required reading, We look at current events, news, commentary with zero sugarcoating, and I encourage you to read the story, question the headline, do your research, embrace the rant. Until next time, keep reading past the headline and embrace the rant. This is the Read and Rant podcast, and we are out.